Good morning. This is evening. Actually, we're getting later on in the evening. This is Dennis Metters at Metters Dennis, or AKA Baumsquad on X. I'm your host of Omahawgs by Fireside podcast. This evening, we're stepping away from the Razorbacks a little bit. The other evening, when we sat down with Parker Rowland and his family. Afterwards, I noticed some tweets on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Uh, and they were referencing a hashtag, keep your fork. Uh, I inquired into this, and that leads us to tonight's little chat and little interview with Matt Parker. For those that don't know Matt, he's currently the recruiting coordinator at Texas A&M University Corpus Christi. We're going to get into Matt's story and learn about his background. We're going to talk to him about some of the guys he's worked with and coached in the past. And then we're going to get Matt's story on keep your fork. Uh, After I saw this on X the other night, I reached out to Matt and I asked him the story behind that, what it meant. It ended up with about an hour-long phone call, and the story really hit me and grabbed me. And I thought, this is something folks needed to hear about. So we're going to get into this, folks. Pull up a seat, reach into the cooler, grab a glass of iced tea, and let's sit back and let's get chat with Matt Parker and learn his story. Matt, thank you for joining us and being here with us this evening.
Yeah, Dennis, I appreciate you having me and letting me come on and talk for a minute.
So, Matt, tell us a little bit about where you come from, where you grew up, where you've been, a little bit of your coaching background, your family background. Let us get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, kind of a small world, deal in the sense I'm actually originally from Searcy, Arkansas, born and raised, graduated from Searcy High School, went to Lyon College there in Batesville and played 4 years there. Left there in 2005, straight to Henderson State to be a graduate assistant to get my master's degree there. So worked 1 year there for John Harvey, who's now at Arkansas Monticello as the head guy, but worked for John for 1 year there. Went and coached summer ball in Chillicothe, Missouri, with the Chillicothe Mudcats, and kind of through that was coaching some guys that were from Garden City Community College out in Garden City, Kansas, in the Jayhawk League, and they had an infield job come open, and so spent the 1 year, like I said, at Henderson State, and then took the kind of the second assistant job out at Garden City, and spent 2 years, so the 7 and 8 seasons out at Garden City Community College there. And you know how baseball is, man. You just kind of, you meet this guy and then that guy, and this person knows that person. And long story short, the pitching coach that I was working with at Garden City at the time, Ryan Sawyers, had a friend that was the pitching coach at Creighton University at the time, Rob Smith, and Rob knew a guy that needed a recruiting coordinator, and so kind of hooked me up. So then I after 2 years at Garden City, I went to California Baptist University out on the West Coast there in Riverside, and spent 3 years working underneath Gary Adcock. So the 9, 10, and 11 seasons there at California Baptist, and got to see West Coast baseball and recruit that side of the country, and just kind of what that was like, and make those connections, and then had the opportunity to leave after the 12 season to get a little closer to home, and took the head coaching job at Oklahoma Wesleyan University, just north of Tulsa in Bartlesville, and so was the head coach there for I guess 7 years, 2013 season to the I guess through the 18 season. There as the head coach, and was fortunate to be around some really good players and some good teams. Had the chance to leave there, and became the athletic director and head coach at Eastern Oklahoma State, the junior college there in Wilburton, and so did that. Guess I was there for 4 years. There, left in the 22 season, right after the 22 season. Got the phone call from Scott Malone, the head coach here at Texas A&M Corpus Christi, and we talked about some players at first, and Then, kind of a day or so later, he called back like, "Hey, we actually have a job open, and would you be interested in that?" And so, was fortunate enough that he gave me the opportunity to come here and be the recruiting coordinator and kind of get my foot in the door at the Division I level. And so just finished the 23 season last year, and then I'll obviously, I guess in 2 days or 3 days, we'll open up year number two. Here at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. So it's kind of been a quick trip around the world, from graduating college in '05 to, I guess 2024. And I've been around a little farther away from home again, but been fortunate enough. My wife, Lindsay is actually from McCrory, Arkansas as well, and I've joked in our first 5 years of marriage, we lived in Arkansas, Missouri, Kansas, California, and Oklahoma, just in that kind of moving around and getting settled before settling into Oklahoma there for 11 years. And I've joked that she either really, really loves me or she's not very smart to follow me around that much. And I don't need anybody telling her any different. So I'm gonna hope that she really loves me on that. But been fortunate to move and be able to do that, and obviously lucky to be here. In the little warmer climate, a little nicer weather, a little easier to coach baseball outside some days when it's early February for sure.
Yeah, you won't have to worry about coaching in 40-degree weather opening weekend like we'll have
No, sir,
here.
not at all.
Uh,
It's a great decision whenever I look at that weather app. It's a great decision to move to Corpus.
Now, all this coaching work, which is demanding quite a bit of your time, plus husband, plus you're balancing being a father as well,
I
and not just to one, but to twins.
Too, man.
Uh,
I told you, before we started recording, I, hit the jackpot. Lindsay and I couldn't have kids, biological children of our own, and so kind of went the adoption route and thought about a lot of things and prayed about a lot of things, and ultimately, in adoption, there's a lot of things that you can, agree to as far as different maybe medical conditions or things like that, and um, you know, uh, we thought about this and prayed about that, and what about this? My wife's an ER nurse, so we felt like there were certain medical, things that maybe we could handle that maybe another couple couldn't handle or whatever. And we got to the part where my wife said, "Well, what about multiples?" And I'm just a baseball coach, so I thought we were doing different then. I said, "Well, what's multiples?" And it dawned on me what she meant, and I said, "Like twins." And she said, "Well, anything more than one would be a multiple." And I laughed and I said, "Sure." And she said, like, "Well, don't you think we ought to pray about that or think about that a little bit more?" And I said, like, "No, you realize, like, I mean, what are the odds of that? Just check the box. Like, it's fine." Apparently the odds were pretty good, that it would happen. And so we did. We have Cortland and Charlie, boy and a girl. So on top of everything else, twin 6-year-olds will keep you busy. I had to go at 8:30 tonight with you because we had Valentine's boxes to get done and get that taken care of. So we're ready for tomorrow. We're up and ready.
Was doing that with two of my grandkids earlier, helping them get their Valentine's boxes, and I guess that gives different meaning to Let's Play too. So yeah, that definitely I can see where having two kids at a time at the same
Mr.
time.
Dennis, I think I can't
Uh,
hear you.
am I losing you?
Oh, I got you back there.
All right. Yeah, gives different meaning to Let's Play too, doesn't it?
For sure. For sure. I tell you what, that's what I tell everybody. Like, I've got one that wants to wrestle all the time. And then one that I have dressed, baby dolls and, fed them and changed diapers. And I'm pretty good at wrestling with one hand and dressing baby dolls with another.
It being a parent offers a different challenge every single day, and I couldn't imagine between me and my wife, we've got 5 daughters. Luckily enough, there's enough difference in their ages. I couldn't imagine having both of them go through all the same things at the same time.
All at
So,
once.
whew,
Right now, our big fight is our daughter Charlie has lost like 5 teeth, something like that, and our son doesn't understand why he doesn't even have a loose tooth. So trying to keep him from like, well, I'll just make it loose, and it's like, no, 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 we don't. That's yeah, they'll just wait. So luckily, the Tooth Fairy's been nice enough to bring enough money to share, so that way we've fought that battle already. So yeah, it's a different challenge for sure.
Now, and I know there's going to be some names that Razorback fans recognize through your coaching travels. Who are some of the guys that went from JUCO to the D1 level or went from JUCO to the pro level? Who are some of the guys you've worked with and coached in the past?
Yeah, fortunate enough, obviously during my time, both at Oklahoma Wesleyan and at Eastern Oklahoma State, but most of those guys at Eastern Oklahoma State, obviously leaving junior college and trying to play at the Division I level. The easy ones that everybody would know would be Parker Rowland, obviously, and Cody Frank. Both were Eastern guys that played for us there, and just off of like last year's World Series team at Oral Roberts, Jonah Cox, Mac McCroskey played shortstop there, and then Dalton Patton pitched out of the pen for those guys there. And obviously last year as well, Nate Ackenhausen, the left-handed arm down at LSU, was an Eastern guy. The previous year at the University of Oklahoma in the College World Series was David Sandlin.
Hmm.
David's now with the Royals. On that same staff with David before he left and went to Oklahoma. We had Christian McGowan who signed with the Phillies out of Eastern, and then Andrew Walling actually left was a left-handed arm that went to Mississippi State before signing with the Phillies. So that's kind of the local guys in and around our area that that we may know. We've had several others go on and play at different places, and back on the West Coast and different places there. But those are kind of the more of the Midwest or Southern Division I guys that maybe people would recognize in that general area.
And in talking to the guys that come from the JUCO ranks, guys like Parker and Nate, and then of course a guy like Jalen Battles that we had a couple years ago, Matt Goodhart, Brady Slavens, all those guys say the same thing. You learn things and you go through things at the JUCO level that does more for your character, your work ethic, just develop you as a ball player that you're not going to get and you're not going to see like a kid going straight from high school into a D1 program. And every one of them that I've ever talked to has told me the same thing. What is it you guys, and I'm sure it's you guys have to try to do more with less at the JUCO level than you do at a program, Arkansas or LSU or Oklahoma.
Sure, and that's one of the big things. Like, obviously we kind of made it a little bit of a joke during our time there at Eastern Oklahoma State. Was we're in Wilburton, Oklahoma, and there's a lot of people that don't even know where that is, and you kind of have to tell them like, well, you know where McAllister is, and then you kind of go from there. And people get there and they kind of look around, and they give you the like, well, hey, what's there to do here? And our general answer was nothing, but play baseball and go to school. And if you do those two things right, you can kind of pick your next place. You can say yes or no to a lot of places and a lot of opportunities. And we were in such a unique spot there. That there's so many distractions, and not, I wouldn't call them distractions, just so many other opportunities and things to do at bigger schools. At Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Obviously we're in South Texas, right on the coastal bend, and the really from about anywhere you are in Corpus Christi, you're no more than about 10 minutes from the beach. From our baseball field at Corpus Christi. If you just go over the left field wall and down the hill, and you can stand in the water. It's literally right there. So there's more things in a bigger town and things like that. And so I think we were, some people would think it's a curse to be in the small town, but I think for the right, those junior college guys that show up that are looking for, hey man, I need to prove this and I need to work and I need to get better. And when they do their time right in junior college, I think it can be special for them because there aren't a lot of those distractions. There aren't a lot of other things to do. There aren't a lot of, uh, like I said, other than going to school and making sure, hey, we're on track academically and being better at baseball. There's really not a whole lot else to do. And for the right people, it's heaven. It is the best thing there. For somebody that wants other things, like, it probably is a bad deal. But those guys, and I think you can look around, at just how many junior college players are in Division I baseball and how successful they are when they get there. That ultimately they are ready to go when they get there because of their time in junior college.
Yeah, they're usually the one, and no knock against guys straight out of high school because we've had some great ones that come straight out of high school, but there just seems to be a different way the guys that come from JUCO carry themselves.
Sure.
Uh, you can tell they've been somewhere and they've seen something, and it's a lot of fun to watch those guys play.
Yes, sir. There's a confidence with those guys for sure because they're not worried about it. They've had 200 at bats. Where they've thrown, whatever 75 or 100 innings. Like they're ready. There is no, well, can I do it? They feel like they've already done it. Now it's just a different stage to do it on.
So, getting to the other night, we talked, and you told me this story about an email you received. Uh, and let's go through that and tell us the story behind Keep Your Fork.
Yeah, it's funny the number of times I told you whenever I just quoted on, commented on Parker's interview and being proud of him and obviously what a great family he comes from and just what a good interview that was. And I think I just, hey man, like proud of you kind of thing. And gave the hashtag Keep Your Fork. And then I open X up a little bit later on, and you're asking, hey, like, what's the story on that? And hey, you can send me a message and I can call you or whatever, but it's not something I can answer on Twitter or X. Like it's
Definitely
a
not
longer
140
story than that.
characters.
So just so you know, and you sent your number, so we talked, and it's funny the number of times that I do get asked that question, and hey, what's the deal with the fork, or guys who have played for us and been through that or whatever that have asked been asked those questions or whatever, and so it all started with my dad actually forwarded me an email that um, he was just going through things and forwarded it, and I was clicking through, and I happened to click on it. It was a story. I probably got it in 2013 during the spring, something like that. And I opened the email, and it was almost like one of those chicken soup for your soul type stories or whatever. That said keep your fork. And so I started reading it and thought, hey man, like, okay, that's at the time I was working at Oklahoma Wesleyan, and obviously a private Christian university where hey, we can maybe share faith and kind of talk about that a little more openly, and so hey, that's a good story. And then it kind of just we used it for that side of our lives, but then also it kind of morphed into a baseball thing. And honestly, it's kind of taken on a life of its own, and it's pretty unique. But the story goes, when I opened the email, I started reading it, and when I first start telling the story, everybody always kind of looks at me like, "What is he going down the right path here? What are we talking about?" And it's like, "Well, just hang with me. Let me get to the end, and I'll bring it back home for you." But the story goes essentially, it started with a young lady, that ultimately had terminal cancer, knew she was going to pass away, was actually meeting with the pastor to kind of plan her service, and last wishes and things like that. And so they'd gone over, this song and that song, and we want this to happen, and and everything there. And obviously the pastor was, it was getting time for him to go. They'd kind of done everything, and he was kind of wrapping up, everything, and obviously sad because he knew this was probably the last time that he would, see her alive. And as he kind of got up to go or whatever, she said, "Oh, one other thing," and he said, "Yeah, anything." And she handed him just a fork, and she said, "Hey, it's going to be an open casket like we discussed. I would like to have, I'd like to be buried with this fork in my hand." And he kind of had that, look as far as like, you know, hey, what, and she said, hey, I know that's, weird. And again, he was like, hey, it's whatever you want. And she said, well, it's going to be open casket. They're going to see this fork in my hand. And, undoubtedly they're going to be asking like, well, hey, what's the deal with the fork? And so, I would like to, you to tell them the story, that, I remember when I was a young girl going to my grandmother's house or whatever. And, we would have all these, dinners, Thanksgiving dinner, a Christmas dinner, whatever it is. Hold on just a second there. Sorry.
One of the 6-year-olds.
Yeah, they sneaking out of here. So turning everything on. That was the vacuum that came on there. So, but it's one of those where, hey, when I would go to my grandmother's dinner or whatever, like undoubtedly, like, we would have different, plates come through, and grandma would always stop, and, she would take this plate away from me, and would ask like, hey, do you want to keep your fork? And as I read that story, I don't know how it is that everybody else's. That's how it was in my grandma. I was like, grandma doesn't mind washing 10 plates, but we're only washing one fork. We're not using a bunch of utensils out of the deal. And so, but she said undoubtedly, like, I mean, she would bring me another plate and I would eat, whatever. And then, somebody would come along and, hey, like, do you want this or that? And, yeah, well, hey, do you want to keep your fork? And she said, ultimately, like, I want you to tell them that, like, I kept my fork. And I knew that was important, because if I just kept my fork long enough at grandma's house with the meals or whatever, that eventually I would get to dessert. I would get to the chocolate cake that I really liked that my grandmother made, or whatever there that I would make it to dessert. And she said, now I want you to tell the people that are at my funeral that, I've made it to dessert. I've made it to heaven. I've lived my life well. I've done everything I was supposed to do. I'm now enjoying dessert. I am in heaven. And so I read that story, and and obviously the pastor obviously has tears in his eyes, because he realizes that this young lady has figured out what a lot of us will never figure out. That how fortunate we are, and in our lives and things like that. So and she just she said, hey, I want you to remind people that, like, if you keep your fork, that the best is yet to come, that you have to continue to do what's right, and ultimately you'll reap the reward when it's time. And so obviously he man, those wishes, and I'll certainly do that for you. And so I read that story, hey, that's awesome. I mean, that I think that brings a lot home for 18 to 22-year-old guys. I think that you can show them something. And so my dad sends me that email. I print that, like, hey, that's good. Like, we'll use that, and we can talk about the Christian aspect of our lives, and how we influence people. And and again, we do have to keep our fork. We have to continue to do all these things. And if we do all of this right, then ultimately, we will have that opportunity to have dessert, to go to heaven. And so I thought, hey, man, I'm going to keep that and use that and share that with our team. And then the more I thought about it, I got to thinking, like, hey, I think I can turn that into a baseball thing on top of, obviously the obvious part of our Christian walk. And so then we started, we talked to our team the next year in the fall of 13 about it. And, kind of just, we talked about how the Christian aspect of our life, and how that, works, and how that's going to be, we can talk to people about it, and it opens the door to share our faith and do those things. But, hey, now also, like, on the baseball side of things, let's talk about that. And let's, hey, fall practice, like, I'm a coach, right? So I'm supposed to tell everybody fall practice is awesome and we love it. And it's, well, in the grand scheme of things, like, fall practice is long, and it's hot, and it's hard, and it's difficult. And, sure, coaches are just like players. Like, we would love to skip ahead to, February the 16th, opening day. Hopefully, as coaches, we're smart enough to know that we can't skip ahead to February the 16th, because we're not ready if we don't do fall right, and we don't do the weight room right, and we don't do, the guys don't go home and work over Christmas break on their own, and do all those things. So hopefully, as coaches, we do a good job of, like, not letting them skip ahead and not letting them hit the fast forward button. But that's what we talked about, was that, hey, like, yes, in your life, you do have to keep your fork, and the best is yet to come. But you have to continue to work, and you have to continue to do those things. Well, also in your baseball career, in your baseball, season or career or whatever, hey man, like the fall is hard. Like it's kind of like eating your vegetables. No one really likes that part. Like we want to skip that part, but you know what? You gotta do that part, and you gotta do it right. You can't just kind of do it halfway. And then you got to be good in the weight room. Same thing over Christmas break. You got to be good at Christmas break, and then you got to have a good January. And then you finally get to the season of all right, like this is what we're working for. It's almost like this is the main course. This is the meat and potatoes of the meal. Here is the season, and you know what? Like it's gonna have ups and downs, and at some point there's gonna be something on that plate you don't really like. You don't get to just rake it off on the floor. You got to do that too, and you got to work. And so we kind of used it as a timeline for our teams and our guys, and trying to like keep them focused on today is the most important day, and we got to do the work today. And then when today's over with, we don't get it back. Now we got to go tomorrow, and we got to do the best we can tomorrow. And we do have to keep our fork every single day. Every day is another plate. Like, hey, do you want to keep your fork? And if you do, like, if you work hard enough and you work long enough and you work smart enough, eventually we'll get to dessert. And so then we always felt like the postseason was our dessert. And so we would do, little things like, hey, if we were able to win the regular season championship, the conference championship, then hey, we gave them a fork and like a little piece of cake, and usually it was cheaper cake. It was we had to start small, and then you get to the conference tournament, and well, hey, if we're able to to win that one, well, hey, like, hey man, you already got your fork, so let's keep your fork, and now the cake got a little nicer. And usually it was some kind of cookie cake or some kind of ice cream cake, or and the pieces got a little bigger. And if you're fortunate enough to win that conference, then hey, is there a regional tournament or a district tournament, or depending on what level you play at? Like, but again, every step of the way, the cake got a little nicer. It got a little bigger. But again, we kept reminding them that you had to keep your fork to be able to get to that part. You had to be able to do what was right. To be able to earn that. And so, hey, Dennis, we tried to, turn it into a baseball thing. And, I told you the other night, like, man, I was just a coach trying to use it to win a few baseball games and keep 18 to 22-year-olds motivated. And, we gave them all bracelets, different teams had different colors, and, it says keep your fork, and it's got a fork on it. And, we gave them those to try to kind of remind them that, hey man, the best is yet to come, but you got to keep doing the work and you have to keep going. And, it's almost like they had to wear it every day. So they had to see it every single day. So again, we were just trying to use it as a cool story to open a few doors to be able to talk about the Christian side of our lives, but then also, try to motivate them to win baseball games. And, I told you the other night, man, it's kind of taken a life of its own. From guys that now are all over the country, still playing, that are still wearing the bracelets, still at times they'll text me, when my wife and I went through the adoption process. I think we talked about my two were adopted, and when we went through the adoption process, and that was obviously a difficult time, and was a little bit of a roller coaster at times on this or that. And I had older players that had gone through it, that would text me, hey, keep your fork. And I knew exactly what that meant. I knew that, like, well, hey man, the best is yet to come. Like, it may be hard right now, but if I continue to do what's right and continue to act right and continue to live my life the right way, that, hey, the best is yet to come, and good things will happen to me. And, we've had a player before, I told you the other night, we had a player that, had cancer, was ready for his senior year. Basically that summer, found out he had cancer, took a year off, beats cancer, which to no surprise to anybody that knew him. And one of the things he told me, I went and saw him a few different times in Los Angeles while he was taking treatments and things. And, he tried to convince me that, like, hey coach, like, one of the things that got me through cancer was, I kept my fork, and I'm going to keep my fork, and I'm going to, no man, like, you beat cancer because you're meaner than that and tougher than that. And, but he thought that, like, reminding himself to keep his fork, like, got him through that tough day of whatever treatment he had, or, things like that. I mean, guys that are married now, with kids or whatever. I mean, they'll talk about things that go on in their life that, hey, I got to keep my fork. They'll send me a message, or, I talked to one of our former players today actually, and instead of saying bye at the end, he actually told me like, hey, keep your fork. And I laughed because to anybody else, you say that and they're like, what is wrong with, did he just say what? And to us, we kind of laugh and like, yeah, okay. Like, I know what that means. Like, hey man, I got to continue to do what's right. And, if I keep my fork long enough, good things will happen to me. And, it's been a cool story that, like I said, we were trying to win baseball games. And now I think I told you there's 5 or 6, maybe even a few more than that, former players that have fork tattoos. So I've had a few of their mamas reach out to me about, hey, he has a tattoo of a fork now, and hey, I have no tattoos. I did not condone that. I did not tell them to do that, but cool that they, that it meant enough to them that they would want to keep that message with them. And I think we've been pretty fortunate that it has helped. Obviously, me in my life, but and sure our teams, and all that, but I think just people in general, hear that. And I've been able to share that story, several times with people. And I know that our former players have shared that story with people. And, I've had other people reach out to me and go like, hey, I heard the story from so-and-so. Like, man, that's awesome. Like, can I have a bracelet? The answer is no.
This is the
The
part
only
that I
people that have
read.
bracelets are people that played for us. My wife does not have a bracelet. She's mad about that. She says she's put up with me enough to get a bracelet. But it is a cool story that hopefully has resonated with some people, and sure, helped them through the good times. But hey, when it does get tough, when a guy has an injury, we hope that like, hey man, they do lean back on like, man, all right, this stinks, but you know what? Like, the best is yet to come. I've got to keep my fork. Today in my rehab is the most important day, and I've got to do rehab right. Because if I don't do rehab right, I don't get to have the success down the road. I don't get to come back from whatever injury it was. I don't get to be the same player, and I don't get to do that. And hopefully, hopefully those guys that played for us and all that stuff, hopefully they hopefully it means something to them. Hopefully they know that I love them, and that ultimately, like, I would do anything in the world for them. But man, it was I don't think that bracelet's doing it. It doesn't have any special power or anything, but hopefully it does affect their lives. And people that hear it, hopefully it does give them a little bit of like, you know what, man, that does help me, get through that tough time. And make it through, because we all know that, tough times don't last, tough people do. And, but sometimes you gotta have a little urge a little nudge to get through the tough time, and remember that, you are a tough person, that you can do it.
Yeah, and with all the negative you see out there every single day, when you told me this story the other night, my first thought, this is something so positive and so meaningful. I want to get this story out there that gives people something positive to think about. Uh, and the story of your former player with the cancer that kept that message, and it, he kept fighting. And if he didn't have that message, I'm not saying he wouldn't have, but what would have been his motivation to keep fighting? Uh, and your guys like Nate Alkenhausen last night, talking to him, his bracelet broke, and his mom contacted you,
She did.
and you sent him another bracelet, and he's already got it on his wrist. Uh, a guy like Parker, we got Parker Rowland here at Arkansas, and I know you and him talked last year when he was struggling, uh, and you told him keep your fork, and he never let it go away behind the plate. And then this fall and this spring, you can see the difference in Parker. So, and you can put it to work in your everyday life as well. To keep doing, like you said, to keep doing those things each and every day to get where we all want to be at the end of our time. I know where I want to be when my life on earth ends. So and of course we all fail. We all do. Life is about failure. It's how you learn from that failure and get back on the right track. So that the story, your story, simply amazed me. Uh, and when we talked the other night, when I hung up the phone, I didn't sleep for a good 2 hours after that. It was just going through my head. And I thought I want to get this story out there and let people hear it because for me, it's so uplifting and it's so positive in a world where we see so much negative every day. Uh, and
Yeah, we've
I,
been fortunate. I mean, yeah, and it carries so much. It's funny, like our guys, that know the story and that go through it. Like it carries so much. Like, it's funny. It's like you can almost use "keep your fork" to end a conversation. You can use "keep your fork" to start a conversation. Like sometimes it is the only conversation. Like guys have injuries. I mean, obviously, Cody last year with his injury, and um, obviously, what do you say? In that spot. I mean, there's nothing that you can say to a guy that has been injured, that you're unsure about what the future looks like exactly. I mean, just is it day to day? Is it going to be the rest of the season? That kind of thing. And I think I actually just texted Cody, keep your fork. That's it. Like, I didn't need to. I mean, and I think that was, yeah. I think he nodded his head, like he sent back like thanks, like always, because hey man, like he knew, like whatever it is, if it's day to day, great, he'll be back, tomorrow. If it's not day to day, like okay, like keep your fork, like the best is yet to come, like whatever that best is, it'll eventually work its way out, like I said, it's kind of funny that 3 words have turned into um, just what it has been, and we've been fortunate, like I said, that it has affected so many people, and like I said, hopefully it trickles down into their families. Not only just hey, that man, they picked it up at baseball, but does it help their family? Again, when their dads, or spouses, like hey man, do they share that story and then it gets passed down, and does it help a generation somewhere down the road, somebody else that we don't even know yet? Because I truly do believe. I mean, I'm fortunate. I coach college baseball for a living. I joke that I've never had a real job. It's a pretty good deal. That they let me coach college baseball. Every day, and in the grand scheme of things, it's I've been pretty lucky. And like you said, I think we all know where we want to end up. And at the end of the day, I think I'm going to be judged on how many people I influenced and helped through their lives, and things like that. Not how many wins I had, or like, well, hey man, that guy could really hit after he played there, or that guy really learned to pitch, or I don't think that's I think there's probably better coaches in heaven than me. I don't think my resume is going to get me in there. I think it's going to be how did we help people, and sure, I want to help them win baseball games and be better baseball players. That's what I do. But in the grand scheme of what I do, hey man, I hope that what I do is something that really affects those people, and helps them become better people, husbands, dads, employees, employers, whatever it is. And I was fortunate to have that in my life, and coaches that helped me get to where I am, and people that had messages that I passed along, and just lucky that story hit, and that we were able to turn it into something. And like I said, it started out, I was 29 or 30 years old when I started using the story kind of thing. And like I said, I was just trying to win baseball games. That was kind of all we were really trying to do with it. And here I am at 41, going, hey man, like it's actually a lot more than winning baseball games. It's actually, it's helped myself, but also a lot of people, I hope, kind of get through that tough time for sure.
well, we sure appreciate you sharing that story, Matt. And really, the people that do listen to the story, take it to heart, and walk away from it with something positive. And me myself, I know I'm going to try to apply it to my life. I think it's something amazing. So really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah, I
And
appreciate the opportunity to come on and share it, and like I said, if it gets one more person, then hey man, it was meant to be, and it was well worth it for sure.
yeah, and I can speak to the two young men that I know that you've influenced, that you've been a positive influence on their lives. So uh, Parker spoke very highly of you the other night. I don't know if you went back and watched the
I
podcast
have,
with him, but
I have.
he spoke very highly of you, and so keep doing what you're doing, Matt, and keep influencing those young men that come into your care for, I know it may be a short window, but keep being a positive influence in their lives and growing not just baseball players, but great young men as well.
I certainly will. I appreciate it.
And we'll definitely keep in touch. I'll be reaching out to you throughout the season, and I'm sure I'll throw you a message sometime. Just I'll throw them 3 simple words to you: keep your fork.
That deal. I'll know what it means for sure.
uh, appreciate it, Matt, and you have a great evening. Go enjoy the rest of the evening with your wife and those 2 kids. And best of luck to your team, Texas A&M Corpus Christi, going into 2024. Hope you guys have a successful season.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Mr. Dennis.
All right, and we thank everybody for joining us this evening. We're 2 days away, 2 more sleeps, and baseball season's on us. We'll see everybody at Baum Stadium or wherever you're going to watch baseball this year. Have an amazing season, and as Matt Parker would say, keep your fork. Have a great night, everybody.